Welcome to Truth Be Told About Going Wild. I'm your host, Robert Hensley, and this is the podcast inspired by the principles of personal rewilding. Today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the systemic abuse of nature as it relates to social and civic injustice. There has long been a trend, we'll call it that, an endemic, of trashing the natural world in areas that were thought to be areas that were Black or Asian, or areas that were not predominantly used by white folk. And we could stick our head in the sand and say that that isn't the case, but we know that it is continued. If we look to the state of water in Michigan, if we look at the state of water and land and the abuse that happens across the Great Plains, across indigenous reservations, pipelines coming through and spilling oil and no one rushing to clean it up. Meanwhile, if there's a train wreck in a, white neighborhood in Ohio, everyone and their mother flies out to make sure that those people are okay, that they haven't been poisoned, that their water is okay. I just thought that it was important for us today to talk a little about keeping our eyes open, right? If we are really learning from the natural world, if we are rewilding, if we are putting ourselves in a place where we want to connect to the natural world and we want to be good stewards and we want to protect the planet and we want to protect, our living kin on this planet, right? Yes, we want to start in our own backyards. Yes, we want to start by protecting our environment, but we do have to step outside of that as well, right? Because if just a mile down the road, they are building, a garbage dump in the backyards of a neighborhood that is predominantly Black or Asian or Mexican or immigrants of some other nationality, that eventually is going to cause issues for our environment, right? Because that doesn't stay in that area, right? Like that pollutes and changes and affects the natural world for miles and miles, right? When we change the natural rhythms of a place, of a space, we have to deal with the consequences, right? We can't stand by and let that happen. And it's not just about, that being a low income area or there's so much crime there, we don't care what happens there. And maybe you don't. And that's on you. To each their own. However, if you're someone who's also at the same time standing in your kitchen, composting your banana peels and talking about how much you care about the planet, that's a bit of a hypocrisy, right? We have to acknowledge that. So today, on a day that celebrates a man who gave his life for civil rights, a man who equated the health of the environment with civil justice, we want to be very aware of how our government, how those in power have systemically used nature as a weapon, and how those changes that they made in those natural environments around those smaller, impoverished, marginalized communities didn't just affect those communities, it affected your community, it affects you, your children, the health of the planet in general. And that is something that we need to, by this point in our evolution, we should be changing. We should all be fighting to change that. So, that was what was on my mind this morning, and I wanted to share that with you. And I hope that that will inspire some thinking, some conversations. Maybe you will take notice of how the environment is potentially cared for a little more differently in your neighborhood than it is in somebody else's, or not cared for in your neighborhood as opposed to someone else's, and what that means and how that affects not just those pockets of community or civilization, but the overall health of the environment, right? When we have things like trash heaps and trash dumps that bring in rodents, right? That maybe bring in invasive species, that again alter the environment in our area. So, with that being said, I hope everyone has enjoyed a fantastic week last week, that they are having a great start to the new year, that they are thinking and being and finding themselves fulfilled. And again, remember, there are 3 opportunities each week for new content from the Truth Be Told family of podcasts on the Club Paranormal channel on YouTube. There's Tony Sweet with the original Truth Be Told every Friday, Bonnie Burkhart on Wednesdays with Truth Be Told Transformations, and of course, Truth Be Told About Going Wild every Monday. And each of those shows on their respective days goes live at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 Eastern. If you would like to know more about what I'm working on, please feel free to visit my website at www.rhnaturereconnect.com. Again, that's www.rhnaturereconnect.com. We've got some really exciting stuff happening. There's a new online community via Patreon that is patreon.com/CW/Robert Hensley Nature Reconnect. And there are 2 tiers, a free tier, which is fantastic. But there's also a paid tier, which is $15 a month, which gets you access to some exclusive content, some live chats and discussions via Google Meet, as well as early and discount access to workshops. And we've got one coming up on March 14th. It's a winter reflection workshop here in the Laurel Highlands of Pennsylvania. Beautiful, beautiful area. There's so much going on here, and we're really excited to be able to host our workshop here in the Laurel Highlands. So, again, I hope you have a fantastic week this week, and until next time.